Evening, everyone. 2020, the last day. What a sodding shit show. I don't think there's any other way to put it. What an absolute sodding farce of a year. So I'm just on my last walk. Brief little stretch of the legs before I don't have the opportunity to do so for the remainder of the evening. So I just thought I'd do some reflection. I started writing something down, but I'm a lot better at verbalizing than I am at writing, particularly when some of this probably has some semi-emotional bearing on myself. So I think we can all agree 2020, as I say, it's been a bit of a farce. And I don't think there's a single person in the world right now that hasn't had a bit of an up and down this year. We've been flung to every corner of a room, and some of us, I don't think we really know what to do with ourselves when it comes to facing up to the fact that it has been such a diabolical year. Now, I remember January coming into 2020. I came in all smiles, I came in happy, but coming into 2020, I remember hearing about a virus 5,441 miles away in Wuhan province. Now, I laughed about the fuss that was kind of being picked up about the virus that at the time we likened to the cold or the flu. Turns out it was nothing like the cold and flu. Similar symptoms, a lot worse. But we laughed about it, and in our little bubble, in our little bubble, we passed it off as, it'd be fine. You might get it and then move on. And then the death toll started to increase, cases started to appear globally, and within 3 months, we were thrown into a lockdown. And even when we were thrown into lockdown, I was still not laughing about the situation. It was becoming pretty notable that things were getting bad. But I took it in my stride. I took to TikTok, as I think a lot of people did. I made videos which kind of took the piss out of the fact that I had to start working from home, that I was locked in, could only go out for one bit of exercise a day. And I think that's because we started to kind of adjust to the fact that there was going to be a new normal, something that we had to get used to. And I thought I was doing fine. And then we got to April, still doing okay. Internet connection was probably the most tedious thing that I had to deal with because of Zoom and Microsoft Teams. But it was all right. It was okay. But I was getting a bit frustrated with being cooped up. And that came to light in May, when it all started to go downhill. The 3rd of May, it'll forever stick in my head. The 3rd of May was the worst day of my recent years. I took a pretty big blow that day, and I'd reached a point where I just couldn't do anything anymore. I was fed up with myself, fed up with the situation, but fed up with myself. And it's when I started to realise that actually one of the things I really needed was help. I've referred to in other posts what happened in May. There was a breakdown in relationships. There was a literal breakdown in my mental health. And I sought help. And I had help throughout the summer. And not only that, I had messages from people, from some of you watching this probably, showing their support. And it was appreciated. I struggled through most of the summer. I had to come back to my family. That was recommended by the doctor and my therapist, that I needed to get out of the city I was in. I needed to get out of York. The house I was in was just filled with negativity and bad reminders. So I needed out. So I spent some time back home with family for a couple of months, and then I went back to York. But I went back to York for the purpose of looking for somewhere else. And I found somewhere, and I moved in June. I've been there since, well, not now, with family for Christmas. But I moved, and in July, August time, my therapist was happy with the progress I've made. I've made promises to myself to do things, and he was happy to discharge me. And so I got discharged. I was still on antidepressants, but I got discharged. And I dealt with stuff of my own accord. And I continued to deal with stuff as well, because depression, anxiety, it's a bit of a back and forth. It's an up and downhill thing. I don't want to call it a battle, but sometimes it feels like that, and sometimes it feels like I'm battling myself. We're at the end of 2020 now, and I'm trying to end it with a view that 2021 will be a better year. I don't know yet. I can't say that, because you never know what's around the corner. But we can just hope. And I think in 2020 I lost a lot of that hope. I lost the hope in myself. I lost the hope in the state of the world. But we can only hope that things will get better in the coming months. Never have I felt more alone than I have this year, and that's something I've had to adjust to. Because I have always been around people. I'm quite a social person. So the minute that we had to start working from home, I couldn't interact. That became very difficult. I'm a theatrical, I'm a performer, I thrive off people. So it kind of threw a spanner in the works. I'm quite glad that I can continue to do office work now. I can get out, have a new routine, or to go back to a semi-old routine pre-lockdown. So I'm glad I've reached that point. But just because I can see people, just because I can interact with people, doesn't mean I feel any less alone. And loneliness is something I think a lot of people combat on a regular basis. Some thrive off it, and yeah, I do appreciate my own time, my own space. But then there are moments where you just kind of get overwhelmed by the loneliness, and that you just wish it didn't happen. It wasn't there. And that's the point I reached a while ago. I enjoy my own space every now and again, as I say, but I reached a point pretty early on where the loneliness that I felt, the loneliness physically and emotionally that I felt, it all becomes too much. And even now, as the year draws to an end, and I'm with family, I'm with people that I love, the loneliness is still there. It's probably the biggest thing I'm still trying to combat. It's probably the thing that gets me the most upset. When I reflect on what's happened this year, where I started and where I've got to, the loneliness is the thing that gets to me most. And hopefully it's something I'll work past. I stopped taking antidepressants of my own volition around 3 months ago, because whilst they are a help in the short term, long term I view antidepressants as a mask. All they're doing is help keep up the charade that things are okay, when in actual fact they're not. So I decided to stop taking them. Sorry, it's an icy path I'm just on, so I've slowed down. I decided to stop taking them and see if I can still keep up the promises that I made with my therapist and the actions. I do that in some respects. I do daily videos, karaoke videos, singing. I do videos like this where I talk. I acknowledge things, and I acknowledge how things make me feel straight away, rather than disregarding them and pushing things to the back of my mind. But I'm still in a position where I don't really know what my feelings are. I still don't know how to express them, because I've got so used to burying things and putting things to the back of my mind that I just don't know how to confront them and how to acknowledge them. But again, hopefully I'll get to a point where I can. Hopefully 2021, and I use the word hope again, is a better year. And hopefully tonight, on New Year's Eve, you are all able to celebrate with friends, with loved ones, and forget the shit show that this year was. 2020 could do one. And as we say bye to it, I say, have a Have a good one. Enjoy your new year. I'll see you on the other side.